roll call. And because I get in trouble if I don't introduce everybody. And so I would like to introduce myself, Lee Peterson, Chairman of the General Committee.
Jim Waters, Vice Chairman, Alderman, Ward 6.
Bob Garza, Alderman Ward 3, General Committee.
Our committee members are all here and present, and I would like to introduce Jason Gallo
Thank you.
and Jesse Eckenroth and Mayor Clary. And we have Alderman Karen Dixon, Alderman Jana Garten, and
Behind you.
yes, Janet Garten. And let's see, Tamara Ingersoll is with us from the city. And I see
Casey.
Casey is back there. I don't know if you can see her, our public information officer.
Yes.
And we also have another guest with us.
That is Mrs. McMullen. She cannot be named Betsy because she's much older than her son is a good friend of mine.
I want to thank you for the committee here, aldermen, city officials, all of our guests. Thank you for attending tonight's meeting. And I would like to accept our agenda.
So move.
Second.
Have a proper motion and second for the agenda. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? That passes unanimously. And now, if you've had a chance to review minutes from last month, I would like a motion to accept those.
I'll make that motion.
Second.
Motion made and seconded. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. That passes unanimously. And so let's move on to item 4. That's ordinances and resolutions. And our first ordinance is 2023-06, an ordinance restructuring beautiful Hendersonville by terminating its statutes as a separate nonprofit corporate entity and reorganizing its finances under the purview of the city. And Mayor Clary, you are sponsoring this, so would you like to update us on this change?
Chairman Peterson, remember when you were planning commission, you very often handed your reporting responsibilities to a staff member. I am going to do the same.
Very good. I'm planning on doing that again tonight, but thank you. Mayor, who would you like to hand that off to?
Our COO.
Okay, perfect. Mr. Eckenroth, if you'd like to update the committee on this change.
Be happy to, thank you. This is just really an efficiency measure for both beautiful Hendersonville and for the city. The way it stands right now, beautiful Hendersonville is recognized in our municipal code as a corporation. That requires an annual filing of the state every year. It's work on beautiful Hendersonville that they wouldn't have to do if they were just a committee of the city. And those annual filings haven't been done for a while. Beautiful Hendersonville is on fire. I mean, they are doing awesome work throughout the city. Tremendous asset to have. So just thinking about ways we can reduce the administrative burden on them. So one of the ways we can do that, if they're not required to do an annual filing every year, they don't have to submit to the nonprofit committee for funding every year, and they can just be recognized as a normal committee. That's the way that we can, we can just incorporate them as a normal committee and change our municipal code just to recognize them as beautiful Hendersonville and budget for them like we would budget for another committee of the city. So that's what this does. The filing hasn't been done since 1991 to be a nonprofit entity anyway. So it's inactive on the Secretary of State's website. So this is just a cleanup, helps them be a little more efficient and lets them focus on what they need to. On the finance side of the house, we don't have a separate checking account under the nonprofit status. They can just be under the city's bank account, and then we'll have a line item for them in the budget where we reserve all the funds for them, and then a line item where they spend their funds as well. So we can, in fact, act as the official treasurer.
All right. Yeah, Vice Chairman, do you have a question?
Yes, I just want to follow up on what Jesse said. Nonprofit incorporated status requires an annual filing. And they've been inactive. Do you know why they quit? Following
I
the
mean,
rules?
I think when it's easy, when boards change out, you get new members in, you're not sure if an annual filing was done, you're not sure if one needs to happen. Maybe you think the city's handling it because it almost acts like a city committee. So I don't know the exact reasons why, but that's why it would make sense just to make it a, it's acting as in the capacity as a committee under the city and not a standalone. And this just officially does that in our municipal code. So I don't know why they quit doing that, but it's another chore for them to do. That's really outside of what their core focus is. And their core focus is not on filing paperwork with the state, but it's on making the city more beautiful.
Again, I can help add to that.
Okay.
I was the president of Beautiful Hendersonville a dozen years or so ago. Never heard of that.
Never heard of it?
Never heard of it. Never heard of it. About annual filings.
Really?
Never came up and I was in all the meetings.
How long was you there?
3 years. Your term's per 3. Unless you
I was
decide.
wondering how far back that goes. If they,
Well-
they've been filing, and then all of a sudden they quit.
Yeah, and it's not really, I mean, they haven't necessarily needed to still do their job, and they don't need to do their job. So it's just kind of removing a requirement, and they're gonna operate under the umbrella of the city.
I can probably answer that question. Some of these audits can cost $5,000. And when your annual budget's 7,000, it just almost makes it cost prohibitive to operate as a nonprofit. And that might be why they weren't getting audits or keeping up their membership with the state, Secretary of State's, and maintaining their 501c3 because it can be expensive.
So we have put a budget in for beautiful Hendersonville under what we're calling government services in the city's budget. So we do have already built into the budget for fiscal year 24 an allocation of beautiful Hendersonville.
What is their annual budget? Do we know,
$7,000.
or what's their expenditures for the year?
I don't know at this point, but I have to look at their flow sheet, but. If they're smart, they spend it all on good things, not just to spend it, but on good projects. So when I took over, it hadn't been used in 3 years. It was 21,000. Back then it was only 6,000. So it was almost $21,000 in the account they hadn't used in over 6 years.
So the budget this year's 10,500. That was the request that came in from the chair. There was an itemized breakdown of the events for this year. So that's on page 24, or I'm sorry, 22 of your
22.
packet. Yeah, 22 of your packet.
That's my next question.
Got that.
Jesse. How come out of fiscal impact, we're talking about $7,000? How come we're going from 7,000 to 10,500?
So 7,000 is currently what they have in their bank account.
Now.
So yeah, so the charter and their status says, hey, if at any point in time they dissolve their corporate status, then those funds roll back to the city. So we're just taking those funds, we're going to plug them in for whatever they are at the end of the year. So if they have 5,000 left at the end of the year, we'll put 5,000 as an amount that they just kind of carried forward, which they might spend it all by the end of the year. So that's this budget of 10,500 is for next year. So they might get through that 7,000 before the end of this year. And that 7,000 was the date that I wrote the staff report. So it may be less now.
Thank you.
Will beautiful Hendersonville continue to do any fundraising, or will they generate revenue for their expenses or for their program?
So that is determined by kind of their chair and their bylaws, and their bylaws do encourage them to promote fundraising activity. So if they do fundraising activity, the donor or any fundraising activity can just be made out to the city, earmarked for beautiful Hendersonville, and we'll plug it into this account.
Okay. That sounds good. Do y'all have any more questions on beautiful Hendersonville?
No, just concerned.
Okay, well, if there's no more questions, I would like for us to recommend sending this ordinance to BOMA.
I second that motion.
Okay,
There's a motion? You made the motion, I second.
Well, I did. I guess I did make. a
Yes, you
motion.
did.
And I have a proper second. And I would like to take a vote whether we pass this to BOMA. All those in favor of ordinance 2023-06 going to BOMA, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? No, that passes 3-0. Okay, thank you. Our next item is resolution 2023-17. A resolution to declare that Hendersonville is hiring 2023 event, a city-sponsored event, and to exempt associated signage from the city's sign regulations. And Mayor Clary, you are co-sponsor on this resolution. Would you like to tell the committee what exactly exempting the signage from this event is?
Sure, we did this a year ago, working in partnership with the Chamber of Commerce. The signage has to be specifically about hiring. We can't be any sort of sale or anything like that. It's specifically about hiring. And we relax our restrictions on those signs, on the banners and what we consider yard signs. The whole purpose of that is to help businesses that are in Hendersonville hire. The businesses that participated last year, what they do is they call up the Chamber of Commerce and they sort of get a packet of what it is that they can do and some stickers and some items for their counter, but also I think the chamber actually had some signs printed up ahead of time and then they just adapted each sign to the business. But those businesses did well in hiring. It was helpful to them. They've asked us to do it again. Probably the most important piece of this is that businesses are allowed to place signs, yard signs and banners at their businesses, but it starts a clock. They only have, I think, 45 days per year to do that. It could be different at different businesses. This does not count against that threat, really, against that window.
Okay, you mentioned it was successful last year. Do we know how many new hires that this campaign was able to achieve?
Not yet. That was a question I was going to ask to have answered before we got to the board meeting.
Okay. Well, yes, please go ahead.
What is rich labor pool? What is that?
Oh, so we have part of the reason that some businesses have a hard time hiring here, especially some of the retail businesses or service businesses, is that we don't have a labor pool that supports as many jobs as we have here. So it's sort of it's a labor pool that is smaller than what it needs to be to support those businesses.
But we don't have it.
We have, I wouldn't say a poor versus rich labor pool. It's big versus large, big versus small. We have a smaller labor pool.
City does not have a rich labor.
That was poor wording on my part.
Really?
It was.
I forgive you.
Thank you.
Okay, let me move on. The size, the previous signs. Who directed what size they're gonna be? I'm talking about the old ones now. Did we do that or did? Okay, go ahead.
We still have parameters on how large the signs and banners can be. They can't violate that. It's just where they can place them and how long they can place them is all we're changing.
So the signs they've got now is something like our campaign signs?
Yeah, similar to that.
Reasons like that. Okay.
Do you know if planning received any complaints or was there issues with signs that were put up citywide?
I don't remember any complaints on that last year.
Can I go ahead?
Yes.
One temporary ground sign per business shall be permitted in non-residential zones. Such signs shall not exceed 12 feet by 6 feet. Such signs may remain in place certain date. What was the description earlier on the other signs?
I don't know. You lost me.
All right, if you got 17 there in front of you,
You see, do you know this one?
7.
You might be asking something our planning department has to answer. Page 7, you said?
Mhm.
it says, let's see,
Not to exceed 12 square feet in size,
12
6
square
feet
feet.
high.
He's looking at the
such signs may
Resolution.
remain.
Okay.
What was the previous sign measurements? What I'm asking.
I think they're the same. It's just that, is that right?
Yeah, I don't think they changed.
Yeah.
I think it was the same as last year.
Yeah.
I don't believe they changed the sign measurements. When we updated it, it was just dates that updated on,
Yeah.
that's right, it was.
Yeah.
It was.
No, no,
No,
no. This,
they
and these are. No, they're not. And even the banners, we didn't have banners. This second one's actually a banner that could
I
be a
know.
10x4 banner.
I know,
Yeah.
I'm gonna get to that one.
I didn't really see any of those. I just remember the small signs that looked like the yard sale signs or campaign signs. I don't even remember any of that large.
Yeah, the only thing we changed this year compared to last year was just the dates. Everything is the same.
Okay,
What were the dates last year? Is it not?
They did it last year.
So March.
I think it was more, yeah.
Okay,
I think May is more appropriate for these businesses with kids getting out of school and others coming home from college. So I hope it's another successful campaign for the chamber and benefits all the businesses.
Why was the merchants upset with us about the signage? That's where it started out.
Yeah,
I mean, did we demand a certain way and it didn't work out for them the way? Did we tell them how to word it on the sign?
we didn't tell them how to word it, but we told them that the banners had to be against a wall, or the banners had to cover an existing monument sign. We couldn't allow a banner right out on the property. So if they didn't have a sign right on the property, they could put a banner up. The yard signs were allowed, but could only be up for so many days at a time and would count against them if they want to have a sale later on in the year. The big thing was really the banners were more important to them because they wanted to have a banner up that was larger than we would allow, and it wasn't against a wall.
Did they have banners out before?
We've had some businesses put up banners about hiring and about sales and other things that our planning departments let them know they have to take them down. This is a situation where they'd be encouraged and allowed to keep them up.
No wonder they're mad at it. So the chamber is going to be responsible. Is that right?
They're going to be the ones that are going to distribute the information about this.
They're going to be in charge of being sure that they follow the ordinance. Is that what I'm hearing?
We'll still be responsible for that, but they'll certainly make sure everybody understands what how lenient I should say, how much relaxed the restrictions are. We'll still be responsible for enforcing.
Can I ask one more?
You
Please,
sure
please
can.
no.
One more. What statement about one sign and one banner in non-residential zones? Just one?
Where'd you get that?
Well, I got it.
Where is it? I want to see what's surrounded.
technically, you're right. There could be one sign and one banner in each business.
Oh,
I
no,
think that's
not on
also
residential,
page
not on their
7.
business, on residential.
Page 7, about halfway down.
Yeah.
Right.
It's not on their block, it's on residential.
Huh?
I mean, I'm confused.
It says non-residential.
That's right.
Okay.
It's non-residential. It could be Joe Blow's Market or something like that. It could be anything. But we're telling them that they don't have one. Well, when I was campaigning, I had signs all over their yards. Don't
Yes.
tell Penny no.
So this paragraph addresses just non-residential zones.
Mhm.
So it's a little bit different than, so you could have a campaign sign that was larger in a commercial area versus a residential area. And that's similar to what this allows. And what's similar to what we allow right now with our current zoning.
I'm not opposed to nothing. I'm just curious. I want you to educate me because I've got to explain this to my wife when I get home. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Okay, do we have any more questions on item 2? If not, I would like to get a vote on whether we want to send this to BOMA.
I move that we pass it to BOMA with our recommendation.
And
Have
I'll
a
second
proper motion and a second. All in favor, say aye.
that.
Aye, opposed? That passes 3-0. Okay, let's move on to other agenda items. And Number 3 is the discussion for the 2024 budget draft review. And I don't know if Jason wants to take this or Jesse or the mayor.
It's not me.
I'll defer to Mr. Eckenroth. He's
Okay.
got much more time on this than I have.
All
so-
right, Mr. Eckenroth, if you would like to discuss the budget draft review.
Sure. So there was a couple key criteria that the mayor asked for. This is the mayor's budget. One was that we think about infrastructure in the budget. So this budget between state street aid and the general fund has an additional $1 million in paving than last year's budget. 900,000 is in the general fund and 100,000 is in state street aid. Level of service was extremely important, so there is nothing that we are pulling as far as staffing numbers or operational tasks or activities that we do that we're pulling from this budget. COLAs were a priority as inflation's hitting everyone, so this budget includes a 6% COLA. COLA is a cost of living adjustment. And then public safety, as it always is, was the focus of this budget. So there's two items in here that are substantial to public safety. One is for the fire department. There's a set aside of $350,000 for a future apparatus purchase. And then the police department has 10 vehicles, including the lights and sirens and everything that goes on the vehicles, included in their budget. Kind of the process of how we went through the budget development to this point. This isn't draft form, but we've taken quite a few steps to get here. We went first through revenues. We determined what a reasonable amount of revenue to anticipate for fiscal year 24 based on previous years, based on the economy. So we came up with some assumptions to basically set a revenue threshold. And then we had departments come in and give their department budgets. We've asked them to stay on the operational side of the house, stay within 1% of their previous year's budget, unless there's justification to where they couldn't run or operate their department without a higher increase. For example, if for the fire station, a new fire engine's coming on, right? So they're going to have another engine running around. Gas prices are going up. They can operate all their engines with only a 1% increase in fuel. So if justification was provided that we went beyond the 1% on the operations, we asked for no new staff so that we could focus on COLAs for existing staff. So what we ended up with after we got all the departments expenditures in, we had about a room for 1% COLA. So we went through again and had to trim budgets. We went through and trimmed, I think, every single budget, every department in multiple areas. Not every department got trimmed the same, but some had more room in them to trim. So we just said, hey, what's the highest priority? And what do we have to trim to get there? So we're able to go through the budget and still keep a good level of service and get it to where we could go with a 6% COLA. Still have money set aside for fire engine and PD vehicles. So what's before you today is the operational budget. We are still working through all the capital projects. So later this week, early next week, we expect to have all the projects kind of gone through and revised, have that out to you guys. But the operational budget is really what dictates the health of a city. This is, do we have enough revenue to keep the lights on type of activity, right? If we don't, we're in bad shape. When we talk about projects, these one-time projects, we're always going to be in the red because when you go build something new, you don't have a revenue source that's 100% going to fund that project. So hopefully your operational budget has enough surplus at the end of the year to cover all your one-time capital projects and special needs. So far we ended where we're at right now. We have about $1,900 of surplus after we have revenues anticipated for next year and all the department expenditures. So I can go through with you on, if we go to page 11 in your packet. This is a summary sheet by department. You can see the departments on the far left column, and then it has the next column is the fiscal year 23 original operating budget. So we included an increase and decrease based on that fiscal year 23 original operating budget. So that doesn't include a mid-year amendment. The third column in is the fiscal year 24 proposed operating budget. So that's what we're proposing this year. And then it gives an increase or a decrease amount for each department. And it gives the amount that those departments have grown. So overall, at the bottom, you'll see total expenditures equal $58,815,140. It's about a 4.2 million or 7.76% increase over fiscal year 23. Revenues are at $58,817,76, leaving us a surplus of $1,900. $1,936 for the year. We can go through any kind of department that you'd like to. That's I guess kind of the highlight. We talked about the committee, so I'll just show you where the committees are going to be in the budget. They're under government services. You find that camera?
Page 22.
Page 22. There we go. Thank you. Don't be shy. If we go to page 22 at the bottom, you'll see beautiful Hendersonville Arts Council. In years past, you may have seen those in nonprofits, but we're including them here in general government services. We've reshuffled some of the departments to make more sense. And in this budget, we have IT and human resources and admin services broke out separately. Those are all one department. So when it gets wrapped up to BOMA for official approval, those departments will all be wrapped up under admin services. But just so you have a breakdown for now, we broke IT, admin services, and human resources out as kind of three separate divisions, but they're one group. So we'll put those together.
I just had a question. And I don't have the answer, so that's why I'm gonna ask it. So Mont Haven Arts and Cultural Center is not tied to the Arts Council?
Correct.
And what does the Arts Council do?
This year, they're trying to plan for a arts festival.
Okay,
So that's what I think the big.
and that's
what's on
done through
their
the city.
radar. Mhm.
Okay, and so why do we give Mont Haven Arts and Cultural Center money?
Well, that would be probably a discussion for is that in the nonprofit?
Yeah.
Yeah, so that would be a discussion for the nonprofit committee to determine on Mont Haven. So these are the requests that were shown.
Okay, no, I understand.
So in what we did for community contributions, which are those nonprofits, is you can see on page 13. Is you can see that page 13 has the 23 budget. It has the 24 budget, but then if you flip to page 14, at the bottom, it says new applicants. So those new applicants, we didn't include in the total, but we listed here so you can see who applied for funding. And then we assumed, just so there was some context to it, we assumed that whoever asked the previous year we just rolled those funds
Ask
to this year,
again.
just because to give some. Because we're trying to determine the bottom line of the budget. So if we were to say, hey, we're not going to put anything in for community contributions until the nonprofit vote, then we would show a surplus right now of, over like $300,000.
Right.
So we said, hey, to keep our surplus where it should be, let's just make some assumptions here on what the nonprofit's going to do. So we just rolled the prior years to this year, and then we showed the new applicants as a request, not included in the total.
Okay.
So if the nonprofit adds these new applicants, that $1,900 that we talked about will be wiped out. If things are shuffled around with the existing applicants, that number can go up or down. Does that answer your question?
It does. Yeah, there's just a lot of things here in the nonprofit
Good
that
question.
I'm not confused, but I'm still wondering why we're doing it. And that'll be the discussion as we get more involved.
Question?
Mhm.
Can I?
Yes.
Good question. I'm serious.
I'm not having to think some too.
You're talking about trimming the budget, Jess. Page 15, executive. Page 18, HR. Page 23, finance. All these were eliminated from part-time employee and overtime. Is that what you meant by trimming the budget to?
Yeah, I guess let's go to my budget, the executive, the mayor's budget on executive. That's probably the easiest. So you can see that in part-time, we reduced salaries $5,000.
15?
Yeah, from 15 down to $10,000. Part-time is one of those things where you don't necessarily know you're gonna need it until someone gets sick and they call it and you have to have someone come in, but we haven't used it. So I didn't want to ask for it just because we can ask for it in the past. We have someone who sits at the front desk who we need someone to answer phones and be there. But if it comes to a point where we see we're gonna exceed the amount that we budgeted, which is 5,000 less than last year, we'll come back at mid-year or ask for some budget adjustment throughout the year.
That's really more me than Jesse's. I insist that we always have somebody at the front desk, and sometimes that means that if we have a person on vacation or a person is sick, we have to hire a part-time person. I always want somebody at that front desk every minute that the door's open.
And then if
I know, but as I look, and I'm just being curious, I'm for it 100%. I just want to be sure I understand. But all
Yeah.
these cuts really helped us on our budget.
Yeah, if you go to page 17, so that's the operational side of the executive budget, and you'll see total operational expenses at the bottom.
Yeah.
And you can see that it's a reduction of $4,000 or negative 3.37
Yeah.
in fiscal year 23. So I mean, a lot of departments did that just to, again, when you do a COLA, your salaries and benefits portion is going to go up. So we just looked at any assets or operational side of the house that we could cut on.
First thing came to my mind, just was, that was great, because we needed that money. In our budget. And that's the only place I could see that we cut it. Professionally and correctly. If we don't need part-time employees, but we don't need overtime workers. I think you did a great job on that. I really do. Oh yeah. Explain number 15, page 15, life insurance for me, will you?
Oh,
Down at
Well-
the bottom.
Mr. Gallo?
Sure. So that's reducing the life insurance. So what we're doing is saying that it's one less person. But we're reducing it because it's cut of 50%. Our costs haven't changed. So,
That
do you
may-
know?
That may have just been a typo. It
Okay,
may have
It's
just,
a typo.
and really, when I calculated the benefits, I did them as a grouping
Yep.
and then spread them out through that, so that would just impact like the health insurance would go out there, change that to $600, the other one,
Yeah.
adjust that.
That's good.
So the way this works too, so I've explained this maybe once or twice, but just so we're all clear, is that when you look on page 15, it ends on page 16, it says total salaries and benefits. So the total salaries and benefits is that item of almost 600,000. That's what the budget's set to. If you flip back to the other page and you can see, for presentation purposes, we're going to break it down to you and tell you this is the Medicare expense, this is the health insurance, this is the dental. We're not limited on the individual line items. That's a reference. We're going to get pretty close. Sometimes you might make a typo, but the budget limit is set on the total. So we'll have salaries and benefits total, we'll have an assets total, and we'll have an operations total. So, if we, like on the operations side of things, our advertising budget is 2,000. If it goes to 2,100, we don't have to come back because we want $100 over, as long as something else is $100 under,
Yeah.
and on the total, we
I
don't exceed.
understand. I understand. That's good. Just wanted to know. Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Yes,
Thank you, Jesse.
thank you very much for clarification on that. And I do appreciate the department heads cutting budgets by 1%. So we do have money for fire equipment and new police vehicles. And also, I would think the most important is the 6% COLA, because our greatest asset is the city employees. So investing in them is really going to be beneficial.
It's a must. We
Yes.
have no choice.
All right, do we have any more questions about the budget?
Mr. Chairman, can I bring up something under other business when you get there?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
Let's go on to other business. And I know from last month, we had started discussions about code of conduct and voting procedures. Is that what you would like to address tonight?
That's exactly what I'd like to address tonight. Now,
Perfect.
the voting procedures, I think we worked out those when we looked at, did some research. Again, any alderman who wants to vote electronically before or after the vote, just raise your hand or say something, and I'm happy to do that. The resolution that we looked up said that we just had to be trained on electronic voting. It didn't say we had to commit and conduct all voting electronically. The other item is about code of conduct. Is I just like your thoughts on how to proceed. We do have a, I think it's it's similar to a code of conduct for us right now. It's a little bit antiquated. And just like for y'all's thoughts on, do we want the general committee to write something? Do we want to put a committee together? Do we want to just throw out some ideas? Do y'all want me to put something together? I just think that we need to update it, and I have had some ideas that have been passed to me just from residents and from some of y'all, and I've saved those. But just what do you want the next step to be?
I'd recommend that you bring a list to us and let us look at it and discuss it.
Okay.
I agree.
Agree?
I sure do.
Yeah, me too.
Okay. The committee is in agreement. Do we have any input from other aldermen in the room?
About that,
Yes.
Jesse? Anybody?
Yeah, Mayor, I think we would appreciate you putting something together for us and letting us review that.
If y'all think of
I
something,
think we're only in agreement that we do need to
Okay.
have a code of conduct.
Yeah.
my only caution is that I'm not your boss, you're not my boss. The Board of Mayor and Aldermen can't remove you or can't remove me for a violation of code of conduct. There are some specific ways that we get removed, we get in trouble according to the charter and according to state law. Code of conduct is really, it's just a framework. And it's just sets expectations of what it does. I'll try to put some.
Well, and timing is everything after what happened at the legislation last week.
I heard about that.
Yes. Okay, do we have any other business?
Can you bring it to the next meeting, Mayor?
I'll try.
Give me
I'll try.
Okay.
All right, well, seeing that there is no other business, and we didn't need to vote or do anything with the budget draft tonight, did we?
You don't need to.
Okay, it was just for discussion.
That's right.
All right, well, anyone have anything to add before we,
Let's make a motion to adjourn.
well,
I second that one.
I proper motion to adjourn and second, all in favor, say aye. Opposed?
Me.
That passes. Thank you very much, and we appreciate that. And the meeting